Are we live already? Yay, we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is a messy start as usual. Um, Welcome to the stream. Today, we're going to talk about whether you can be right wing and left wing, or indeed, are you allowed, are you able to be a centrist? Now, I won't lie, this topic comes up because hi Rin, was in a discussion on Twitter with the socio equalizer, who, in my humble opinion, is a troll, and Dialogue Always, who has been on this stream once or twice as well. And I thought we could have good talks. And some other people jumped into that stream. But basically, it boils down to this. And funny enough, the stream is still going. Their discussion is still going. But just now, the troll, socio equalizer, basically proven my point without me ever having to say anything. This is his latest tweet in the thread. Very few center leftists, if any, call themselves centrist, because centrists basically mean you are right wing at this point. And I think even before we get started, that point basically proves that according to a left-winger, you cannot be a centrist, because if you're a centrist, you must be a right-winger, because you are right of them. Just like a centrist is left of a right-winger, but he's not a left-winger. But to the left, if you're a centrist, you must be right. Anyway, that's going to be our topic, and I have the feeling that we've already finished it. So, Rin, I'm going to give the floor to you, because in all fairness, you started this thread discussion with these people. What's your take?
Well, I mean, it's just like the left is very dishonest. I mean, wait a minute, can you guys hear me clearly? Am I coming in clear?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, like from this side, it's like the leftists are full of liars and trolls. I mean, I've made a public tweet about it. It seems like what I've been getting is lies, trolls, gotchas, gaslighting. It's been like really annoying. Or it's kind of like how it's a progressive talking point. Like many of you guys would hear progressives say things like, it is wrong to dollar pal people, it is wrong to do this. But like this thread started off like one-on-one. It was just me and social equalizer, and then other progressives felt the need to jump in and provide backup, which belies their statements about how dogpiling is wrong. If dogpiling is so wrong, it's two people are having a one-on-one conversation. Why not leave it 101 and for this to just, kind of resolve itself? Why is there a need to just jump in? So it belies their utter message, because, and I've experienced this multiple times. Like I've experienced this when I was in the thread criticizing ContraPoints, where it's kind of like, it's kind of like it's what they want for themselves. They would want like anti-feminists to address them 101, but they do not apply their roles to themselves. Hello, short story. They're not like, like it's like they want you to be 101, but they don't want to do the reciprocal. They don't want to do the inverse, where they would give you that 101 courtesy. So, I mean, I feel like it belies that message, but mostly the problem is that it's how dishonest that it has all been. It's like the gotchas, the loaded questions. It's kind of, or it's kind of like the deliberately missing my points. Like first it was me and social equalizer, then it was me and Tim Blake, and it's kind of a lot like, we were talking about whether or not the left are identitarian, because I believe that Temple, and this is how the whole thread started. The whole thread started because of I shared a video by Temple. I think he made a great video explaining how the left are identitarians and how we should call them out for being identitarians. We shouldn't just stick to calling the alt-rights identitarians, because the alt-rights and the left are similar in some ways, like when it comes to focusing on a person's identity, like reducing people down to their skin color, or reducing, or at least this was what you see on the left, how they would reduce people all the way down to their genitalia, where you are nothing more than just a Black person. You're not a complicated human being. That's the reason why the left would call you a coon or an Uncle Tom if you are a Black Republican, because they view it's like, if you're Black, they want you to have very specific characteristics. So I would agree that Temple is right, and that they should be called out for their identitarianism. And then, like Social Equalizer was like, Temple is a liar, a manipulator, a deceiver. He's not really to the left. He's an in the closet right-winger. And he's just, pretending to be a left for whichever reason. I don't know why anybody would lie about that. It's odd. Then Tim Blake got involved, and like he would engage in like deliberately missing the points. Like he would be like, how could the left be identitarians? And it's kind of, he would be like, only white people would be identitarians. But then I would say, and I've said this multiple times, well, you acknowledge that there are gender critical feminists and that there are intersectional feminists, but he would ignore that over and over again. So I know that he didn't just not see it, because I know that if you get I don't know how many followers he has, because this is a new account of his, but I know that if he possibly has 500 followers, he probably would have missed the tweets. But I've repeated this 10 times, 10 different times. I was like, well, you acknowledge a difference between gender critical feminists and intersectional feminists. And he would always conveniently ignore that, because then he would have to agree that, yes, you can be a rights identitarian and, or a Black identitarian. But then he eventually slipped up. I had to wait until he slipped up, where it's like, because I brought up Tariq Nasheed. And it's like, well, what would you call Tariq Nasheed? Tariq Nasheed would be a Black identitarian. It's like, well, I would use Black supremacist, or, a Black nationalist. And I would say oh, so you acknowledge that Black nationalists exist, even though white nationalists exist, or you acknowledge that Black, supremacists exist, and not as well as white supremacists. You wouldn't go, well, just a supremacist, because, supremacists could only be white people. And it's like, thank you for finally getting the points. And then he just brings up a loaded question. It was definitely a loaded question, because to the gender critical feminists and intersectional feminists, he finally addressed it, and he goes, so you think that Christiosity is exactly and precisely like Magdalene Burns? And it's like, that is just a loaded question. It's amazing how dishonest these people could be. And I would also say that Lauser has been very dishonest, because he would talk about, self-proclaimed centrists, but he didn't add, quotation marks, and he didn't, say so-called, usually, people try to talk as clearly and precisely as possible to make sure you get the message. But he would say self-proclaimed centrist without quotation marks. So I would think that he meant, people on Twitter who call themselves centrists, especially since he brought it up out of nowhere and rather passive aggressively. It's kind of like it just didn't really fit into the conversation. It was like a passive aggressive remark, but then he was just all shocked and confused and bewildered, like, how did come you think that I'm talking about you? But the way he inserted it, it was like done like a passive aggressive remark. It would be no different if he were to say a certain black woman with glasses, and they go, "Oh my goodness, I'm surprised you thought I meant you. Like, why do you think I meant you?" It's like, it's just that passive aggressive bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yes, I like that he's a mind reader.
Yeah, that too.
Because how does he, like in his bio, I just looked at his bio, and he's following me, by the way. I didn't know. How the hell does he, how can he smell a classical liberal from 150 yards away? That is mind reading, because a classical liberal is these days center, basically a centrist, slightly center left than it used to be, more than it used to be in the 150 years ago when it was a liberal. So it's weird, these people. But I would debate him easily. How does he know? How am I a right winger? Because I'm a centrist. I have center left social leanings. I want to have the state to have a safety net for example, sick, the unemployed, the elderly, etc. But I'm center right economically. I want the free market generally to deal with things. No great interference. Regulations so that corporations don't sell us crap, basically. So I'm centrist now. How does that make me a right winger? I am right wing to anyone on the far. They are basically far left. They're not left. They are the extremes.
But that's the thing, though.
Yeah, they are the extremes.
And to them, if you're not following them,
yes, exactly.
You are right.
Anyone right of. I don't know.
Anyone right of Mao Zedong?
No. Pol Pot.
Fair enough. Yeah, sure.
Pol Pot.
Him too.
Yeah, he is a right winger. He's an alt-righter. He's a white supremacist, etc., etc.
And that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a problem with people claiming to be centrist, even whether they're left or right-wing centrist, because you can be left to center or right of center, fair enough. But to them, there's only two options. You are left-wing, like they are, or you're right-wing. And yes, John, you're correct.
Yes,
they are authoritarian. It is an authoritarian movement. That's the whole point. I mean, I'm in this discussion still talking about whether if you believe something, I have the right to tell you you're wrong. Well, yeah, obviously I have the right to tell you you're wrong if you believe something. But if you identify with something, I do not have the right to say you're wrong. I have the right to say I disagree. But I cannot tell you that if you say, oh no, I identify with the Black Panthers, whatever silly reason there is, but if you do, well, I can say that I'm worried about that, or I can say that I didn't expect that of you, or that I hope it's not true. But I cannot tell you you do not identify with the Black Panthers, because I cannot read your mind, and I cannot tell you who you are allowed to identify with. And that's the thing. That's what this whole discussion is. No, they're not centrists. They are right wing because I say so.
Yeah, and I will never acknowledge. I will never give them that. They cannot tell me what I think. They can scream their lungs out. They can as soon as they move away from reasonable argument, they lose. If they cannot tell me what I think, no one can tell me what I think. And I'm sure that applies to all of you guys.
Yeah.
They can't say, no, you are left-wing. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm centrist. No, you are. No, I am not. I don't care what you say. I am how I feel I am. In fact, it's so fucking stupid because they push, oh, I identify as this, I identify as that. And you have to accept that. Okay, now accept me as well. It just doesn't work as you want it. I'm making this argument so you can see the point I'm making. They can't, they have, if they want to be acknowledged of their feelings and their position, I have the same right. They don't have more rights than me, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like they would want you to recognize them as otherkin, gender non-binary, gender fluid, NB, yeah, they'll call themselves NB, as in non-binary, and they'll write it in a weird way, like ENBY. It would just be a lot like they'll say like my pronouns are they, them, and they want you to say that they're a woman with a beard and hairy armpits. But it's kind of like, oh well, I'm a centrist. And it's like no. All people who call themselves centrists are actually right wingers.
Yeah, and that's. Well, but it's what John said. I mean, it's not left or right. It's authoritarian, and that's the thing. The left. I mean, we can't even call the left or the idiots on the left, the extreme left. We can't even call them extreme left anymore because they're no longer extreme left. They are authoritarian. You have to agree with what they say because they say it, and therefore it must be true.
That the horseshoe theory. It is no longer valid. Or if it was ever, now it's not the horse because the ends have joined. They are exactly the same as their counterparts, as their opposites. One is authoritarian in the identity part of identitarianism that they become authoritarian. One is about the physical attributes, the skin color, etc. The other is what is in their mind. Or the people's mind, how they identify, and also their both of them can be identitarian in gender-wise, but the difference is one is on the outside, the other one's on the inside.
Well,
that's how I feel.
Yeah. No, but I agree, and it's scary to me because, in a way, and I've said this many a time, Hitler was left-wing. No, he wasn't. He was right-wing. Yeah, except for the fact that he really was left-wing. Mao Zedong, left-wing. Pol Pot, left-wing. Stalin, left-wing. I could continue. Chavez, left-wing. Maduro, left-wing.
Let's say that they were not left or right. Let's say they were. They controlled masses, social. They engaged in social control of the people, obviously the people.
They were very much authoritarian, but they started from the left.
I mean, but
they ended up in authoritarianism, but they started from the left.
Exactly, and while one part allows basically free ownership of your own property, the other side does not.
Yeah.
That's it. But they both. That's the real difference. The only real difference. One allows market, and one's the economic, because people conflate capitalism with many things. But capitalism is just a economic model. It has no ideology behind it. It's just an economic model.
You could be a left capitalist. No problem.
Exactly. You could be a communist. That's why they're using now. Oh, the Soviet Union was not a real communist state, or was not a socialist. Yes, it was. They just applied. Yeah, they were. They were completely. They just applied to get an economic model which had a lot of capitalism in it. They had capital. They cannot argue that it wasn't socialist. It was. Even Venezuela now, when it's with its total destruction of the. It's still applying a model, an economic model, and that economic model is called capitalism, because you have capital. If you want to be pure socialism, you don't have cash capital.
Yeah,
you barter. You trade one horse for a donkey or whatever.
I'm sorry, but Soviet Union and yes, they still use money, they still use capital, but they weren't capitalistic.
No, they were. They had. I didn't say they were capital. They applied some capitalist economic. Yeah.
But those things that they applied have been around before capitalism.
Of course, exactly. But socialism is a ideology as well as an economic model, which basically removes capital. But if you remove capital, then what do you have? It doesn't work in anything other than a hunter-gatherer band society. Because in anything that involves social hierarchies, forget it. Doesn't work. But yeah.
Okay, I have a question from the dark conservatarian. How was Hitler left wing? Okay, let's go there. Hitler was the leader of which party? The National Socialistic Workers' Party of Germany. They were socialistic, not just in name. They actually believed that it would be a good thing to try and, do away with rich people. It's an easy way of saying it, but let's go that way, because basically that's what socialism is. Socialism is the way towards communism, where society shares and no one becomes overly rich. Now, there are a few things that always happen in socialistic economies. The main thing that always happens in socialistic economies is a very high protectionism of the ones that they are in favor of and planned economies. There hasn't been a socialistic country yet that did not have planned economy. This always fails because planned economies will fail, because if you plan something, the market responds to what is asked and what is needed. A planned economy doesn't respond to what is asked. This is, for example, why you see bread lines in socialistic countries. The production of bread is not based on demand, it's based on what's planned. And therefore, they will always produce too little because they miss certain things. I don't know why, but there hasn't been a planned economy in the history that worked. Hitler had a planned economy. Hitler had several programs which were supposed to uplift the worker, just like any other socialist country. Now, it is true that Hitler also was against certain people within his country, but yeah, I mean, so was Stalin. Only the difference is that everyone complained how Hitler was so very much against foreigners and the Jews. This isn't really true. The main reason why Hitler was against the Jews was because of the First World War. Funny enough, well, no, too many details. That's not the point. Do you understand how Hitler was left-wing now? Planned economy, trying to protect the worker and trying to create an economy based on uplifting the worker. What did you want to say, Carlos?
Okay. Hitler, do you know how he controlled the capitalists or the capital, the corporations? He put fear in them. He forced people, basically in his programs, he forced people to engage the plebs, engage the workers, and what that meant. There's videos, a lot of videos of him, all his. It was a show. It was just a show. All his higher-ranking officers with corporate leaders sharing the meal with the workers. Mm-hmm. There's a documentary series on World War II, which was made in 1973. Laurence Olivier narrated. It's called World at War. I recommend everyone watching that. It explains everything. In fact, the first episode, it explains Germany and how it was, how it had its social programs, how it did control the economy. It was very similar to what's true socialism is, but he did it slightly different. For example, the unions wanted May Day. He did that. On the same day he gave the workers May Day, he outlawed the unions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like by the way, Modwain, did you see that video on the link I shared on Twitter to Social Equalizer and Tim Blake by Razor Fist, where it talks about Benito Mussolini and fascism and how fascism is left wing, and Hitler, he's a fascist and learned from Mussolini. And Mussolini, and I mean, fascism was meant to be a pure form of socialism, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like now, I don't think that Racist will probably wants us, go into his video, but I do have, a link up about how the left and fascism, or by Benito Mussolini, has in common. And I've already skipped ahead to the part where it reaches Mussolini's ideas. Should I screen share?
Yeah, sure, if you want to.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, Dark, if you have more questions on this topic, mate, by all means, go ahead.
Okay, Benito Mussolini said in 1932, race, it is a feeling, not a reality. 95%, at least, nothing would ever make me believe that biological pure races can be shown to exist today. National pride has no need of the delirium of race, and he's a fascist, but yet you would probably associate this line of thinking with, a leftist group, but this is, yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Rin, because this is a perfect point. And you are 100% correct. And this is one of the mistakes that people constantly make when talking about fascism and Hitler's Nazi ideology. How many times have I told you it's not about ethnicity, it's about culture? Basically, this is what Benito said too. I don't care if you're part black or whatever. I care that you have national pride. I don't care about your race. You're an American. You have national pride for America. And your country recognizes, or should recognize, that and hold you in esteem because of that.
Stalin also purged many ethnic groups.
But that's the thing. It's mostly.
So he attacked the Jews. He attacked the Far East Turks, the Central East Turks, the Far East and Asian ethnicities, and he spread his the white European Russians into those lands. So that he did basically the same as Hitler. And why isn't he being criticized as much? He was as quote unquote racist as Hitler.
No, he was way more racist than Hitler.
But yeah, exactly.
Because at the beginning of the Second World War, Jews actually fled towards Germany, not away from Germany.
They were having purges and almost monthly by the Cossacks, for example.
Yeah,
but you don't see them. You don't see many of the modern day identitarians of. I'm going to continue saying the left. It's a good term. It shows the differences between left and right. I know it's wrong, and I understand what John honestly well said, and said, but it's a good terminology that we can use. The left are as racist as the right, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. The horseshoe has joined. There's no difference between them at the moment. They are as religious on one side as the other, but their religiosity is the ideology, as it is. Their ideology is so profound on both sides that they are it's basically now a religion.
Yeah, but that's the thing, and this is why I keep pushing, or keep saying, or keep promoting, no matter how I want to say it. It's not about ethnicity. I don't care about ethnicity. It's about cultural cohesion.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like how fascism turned out at the end of well, at the beginning of the First World War, at the end of the First World War, at the beginning of the Second World War, because it became authoritarian. But that's because fascism came from the left. But the ideology behind fascism wasn't based on ethnicity. It wasn't based on race. It was based on together we need to carry the state, and the state needs to carry us. And that's unfortunately, that is one thing I actually do agree with. Funny enough, that's what America was based on even before fascism existed in modern Italy. Because if we look at the original coat of arms of America, it was E pluribus unum, out of many, one. And that was what America was supposed to be. We are stronger because we are all one. We are together. This is true for America. This is true for the Netherlands. This is true for, well, obviously Italy. This was true for, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a football club, but yeah, still.
It has that motto, et pluribus unum.
But that's because it was recognized by most people well before the First World War. And that's why fascism went back to that. They didn't go to it, they went back to it. Because they had to defend themselves against the Bolshevik. The Bolsheviks caused fascism. The Bolsheviks caused the Nazis. But there were left-wing ideologies competing with each other to overthrow the other. So it was an authoritarian movement against an authoritarian movement. The problem is they were both authoritarian. It's not the problem that they were both left, that's just a coincidence. Now then again, there have been a few right-wing authoritarian movements, but not nearly as many.
We had one here in Portugal from 1926 to 1974.
Yeah, Spain had one as well, Chile had one. Argentina had one.
Portugal's was the longest living.
Yeah, but they tend to be secluded to their own country, where the left is outward. Anyway,
getting back on topic of how we center is a right wing compared to the left. I'd like to talk to him and here, if you do ever make it, I'd debate him.
Who do you want to talk to?
That guy, what's his name? The one that made that statement.
No, I'm not going to. The statement I started with was from Social Equalizer.
Yeah, I'd debate him.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother. The guy, I've been trying to talk to him on Twitter so many times. He is a troll. Trust me, he is a troll. He's a contrarian.
Oh.
If you say something, he disagrees. If you then prove that he said the very same thing, he disagrees.
Oh, sorry.
There is no reaching it.
Yeah.
Obviously, now I'm the racist and I'm the bad guy, and that's all right with me. But no, I'm not even going to spend time with him. I mean, you're welcome to do so. And a few months ago, I would have invited him in. I have invited him in here a few times. But I'm not going to do that anymore. The dude is a troll.
Is he under Napoleon?
Like, Social Equalizer has told me that he loves trolling whom he believes to be right-wingers, but he says that centrists are right-wingers. So
Yes.
he just says that he enjoys trolling right-wingers, and he made it clear to me like months ago that he's not going to attempt to have a real, genuine, sincere conversation. He told me that months ago that all he's really interested in doing is just trolling, and that's it.
I like to say something to John, though. John basically said there are many types of centrists. And you know what? You're correct.
Yes.
You are correct. Stalin wasn't a right winger, by the way. He was left wing. But yeah, no, there are many there are many centrists, because you have people who are left of center, and you have people who are right of center, and you have people who are in the center, and even the people in the center might not agree on the same thing. That's the whole thing. If you're a centrist, in all fairness, what you really are as a centrist is an individual trying to be quiet.
I'd say an individual that does not want to be in any of the extremes.
No, yeah, well, that too. But two centrists don't have to agree with each other. How often have we sat here and disagreed with each other? Centrists don't have to agree with each other. We can disagree. We can passionately disagree.
I think centrists are more inclined to disagree with one another, but they argue with valid points. They don't. They generally feelings is something you can't get rid of in human interaction at all. But
we all have feelings.
Exactly.
Shouldn't guide us, but they do.
No, but we centrists, we can accept when we are wrong, for example.
Eventually.
Well, of course, everyone's a little bit obstinate. What's that word? Obstinate. So yeah, no, I'm right. No. But in general,
yeah. Oh, I'm going to respond to Alicia now. I consider centrists the first step to tyranny. Democrats to be are the center, and the Republicans are slightly to the right of the center. You know what, Alicia? I disagree with you. I think just as much as Democrats can be center or left or right, Republicans can be center or left or right. The one thing that makes the center is that it's not authoritarian. Mm-hmm. As soon as you move away from being authoritarian or not, you're also moving away from the center. Because you can't be a centrist and an authoritarian. That's kind of the whole thing. I'm sorry, I need to be AFK for a sec. Yeah, keep the stream going. I'll be right back.
I forgot what was I going to say. Oh yeah. For example, centrists are not authoritarian. That is a fact. We don't want. If anyone has lived under authoritarian rule, they usually go centrist. And I'm not going to give the example I usually give because it's boring. But you guys have heard it enough from me. So, what the left has done recently is something that harbors back to Galileo. If everyone knows what Galileo did against the Catholic Church, he was censored. He was punished because he published scientific papers, scientific studies on reality, on science. And this week and last week, 2 academic papers were censored by the left. One of them has to do with another confirmation of the bell curve, basically the bell curve, where males tend to be on the extremes, more on the extreme. There are more examples of them, of male idiots and male geniuses, while the females are more in the center. They don't have that extremes. And that was censored. And that is basically religion, the Marxist religion, censoring science. And I'm a centrist. That to me is horrific.
Yeah.
It would be also...
We see the same, by the way, in social sciences when it comes to this whole gender debacle at this point in time.
Yeah, that's another one. Another study has shown that was also censored. I can't find it. I did manage to download the PDF of the one that was the one on male variability, but I didn't get. I don't know where the other one is on that the fast onset of this sexual gender dysphoria in children that can be onset really fast. And basically, I think they concluded that it was influenced by their peers and other influences, not natural. It was not a natural process of the body.
No, that's true.
Yeah, and it was censored as well. It was I think I showed you guys some tweets which I screenshotted of this idiot agreeing with me. I called her those two idiots religious fanatics, and they liked my tweets. Either they totally didn't understand them, because I wrote them in language which could not be banned. There was no attack. Oh, there was an attack, but I used all the vocabulary I have, English vocabulary. So I can't find them.
See you later, John. I'm sorry I interrupted you. See you later, John.
See you, John, my friend. I hope you're feeling better tomorrow.
See you.
Yeah, but yeah, no, you're correct. I like to go back to Alicia. Alicia says welfare programs from the government are the backstop of social societies, and voluntarism is the backstop is charities. I partly agree with you. I don't think that a welfare program in itself has to be socialistic. If we look at the insurance way of doing it, every worker pays a little bit into the insurance, and it insures him or her for when they lose their income, that the insurance will cover it for them. If we look at welfare in that point of view, it is a right that you pay for. Unfortunately, if you allow people to join your country and then you pay welfare to them even though they never contributed to the system, yeah, that's when it really has become socialism. Funny enough, this is what we see in Europe now. But welfare in itself does not have to mean socialism. You can reach welfare from, but even from a right-wing point of view, even from a centrist point of view, because it's helping people to survive the difficult times. Yeah, well, voluntary insurance policy is fine. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the bigger the country, the less voluntary it's going to be, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, the bigger the country is going to be and the more people pay into it, the cheaper it's going to be. So there is that. I think welfare in itself isn't a huge problem. Big welfare is a problem. So yeah, if you let in people who never contributed to the system and then suddenly say, oh, okay, well, we have welfare so you can share, then you've created a problem. Because then you have people paying into the welfare system so that other people can take out of the welfare system who has never contributed.
I believe in welfare as sort of like I said, a safety net. I want there to be some safety nets. For example, if you're sick, while you're sick, you can have quote unquote welfare from the government, some programs. If you're old, your pensions, that's a welfare program, but that you contributed to your life, that's fine, I think. No, I don't think I know that's fine. Unemployment and these other programs that are out there, yes, they are wrong. They shouldn't be, especially unemployment. I think unemployment, you can have a period of, say, a year. If you try to find a job for a year, they will pay, even if you haven't contributed, they will pay for you some welfare. But after that period's gone, I would like to see these people that are receiving welfare for unemployment or some other thing, working. Actually, the government will provide them with jobs, not paid more than the welfare. If they want to get paid more, they will have to search for work that pays them more. There are obviously there is jobs, these type of jobs that do not compete with the private sector, for example. Say cleaning, Cleaning forests so there's no forest fires. Roadworks type of thing or road maintenance that are not covered by private companies. Those sort of things. See what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Hey, Alicia, I want to ask you a simple question. Because you think I'm proving your point. Fair enough. I disagree, obviously, but that's me. So tell me this. Define right-wing. I mean, you say you're extremely far right. Okay, what makes you extremely far right? Define right-wing. You could do that by coming in here, by the way, if you want to.
An anarchist capitalist. That doesn't work either.
That doesn't work. And in all fairness, you can't be an ANCAP. Well, you can.
You can, but it just doesn't work.
I sent you a tweet an hour ago, Alicia. 2 hours ago by now.
I seriously don't understand how centrists are a problem.
Well,
I don't understand what she means.
Well, people like to think in politics as a dichotomy. You're either left or you're right, which obviously isn't true. I mean, there's a huge difference between someone who's left and left, and there are huge differences between right and right. And there is obviously also a lot of differences between people who are centrist. But somehow people don't seem to care about that. Okay, I'll send it to Discord.
Hi, Pumpkin.
Where are you? Are you on Discord? Did you? I sent you the Discord thingy, Alicia. What am I doing? And hey there, Daily Pumpkin.
Hey, Daisy Pumpkin.
I have to admit, I like the last song you posted, Daily.
Hey, Daisy Pumpkin.
No, but the thing is, we say left wing and right wing as if it actually means something. And I still haven't figured out what it means. I mean, yeah, no, if you're a nationalist, you're right wing. Okay, but Stalin was a nationalist. Mao was a nationalist. Yeah, but they were not nationalists in the way that the others were nationalists. Then being a nationalist doesn't mean you're either right wing or left wing. So what defines right wing? And what defines left wing? Now, I like what Jordan Peterson said. Basically, Jordan Peterson said left is emotional and right is logical. Not so much that the people who are right wing are logical,
but not extremes. No, not the extremes. They are both illogical.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
So I've asked a lot of people to define left wing and right wing for me, and most people haven't been able to do.
Basically, one is private property, the other one is public property. That's it.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe that is.
That's the only thing that they don't have in common. If you write down all the things that they believe in each thing, and you will see that most of them are the same. One is national, one is international.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you. No, shut up. Men are talking.
I'm sorry, but I wanted to say, to me, from my experience, people on the left are just people who only look at their emotion and what they would like to have or how the world should be, now not what's possible and doable in reality.
But Alicia joined us to explain what she thinks left and right is.
So left wing are those that oppose the conservative way of that life, as in they opposed the king. They were revolutionaries and did not believe in private property, because if the king owns everything, whatever you're opposite of is what they wanted. So they believed that private property was theft. So that is the left wing. Revolutionaries against conservatives and wanting to abolish private property, whereas the right wing are those that are conservative, do not believe in revolutions or war. So you can't have a war. You're going to try to negotiate instead. And they also believed in private property rights. So that was where it was all founded, and then it branched off from there. And so America, the American Revolution, it was the leftists that decided they would go to war against Britain, and the right conservatives, they were afraid to do it, but they decided that it was because the leftists said, we're doing this for our great-grandchildren. And so we owe the left wing, America does, I know nobody wants to hear that shit, but we owe the left wing a gratitude and thanks for us splitting away from Europe. But luckily, we had a right-wing conservative that believed in the natural order, families, private property, write up our Bill of Rights. So to me, the left wing are people against private property, want a revolution, and are always thinking in the future, whereas the right wing is more concerned with being conservative, trying not to start wars, and they believe in private property.
Well, that could be correct. Okay. I don't see it like that, but
no, that's historically correct. That's where they started from. That's historically correct. That's the only meaning there could be.
That's basically what I said. The difference is one.
If we look at Europe, it was already different.
Well, and I agree. I'm saying is that if you start at the beginning of a term, that's the full meaning of the term, like anarchy, right? Everybody believes that anarchy and communism are the same things, and they're not the same at all. Both of those words have been corrupted, just like the word progressive. The word progressive, we're progressing towards a better future, has been corrupted, right? Mm-hmm. The Democratic Party, that word means nothing now because the Democratic Party was majority rules.
Yeah, that's the difference between democracy and the republic.
Corrupted, but I do stand by the fact that I think centrists are part of the problem. I'm sorry, you guys. I really do.
How if we oppose the left? How are we the problem if we oppose the left as well as the right?
Well, I also think that democracy is part of the problem as well. So if that makes you feel better, because you don't get to tyranny you don't just wake up and tyranny is ruling. It doesn't happen like that. Tyranny is always
it happens fast.
Well, it can happen, but no, it doesn't. It happens one law at a time. Like, look at America right now. So America is not a capitalist society, not by a long shot. We're a social welfare police state. We have so many laws. That every single person in America right now is breaking 3 federal laws. Every single person. And the police can take our property, even if we don't commit a crime, and we can't get it back. So to even say that America is the land of the free is like
that is rubbish. I agree with you on that one. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, if we look at America now and we look at America, let's say 80 years ago. No, sorry. Longer. 120.
You have to go back to 1912.
Yeah, no, you have to go before that because that's when, what was his name? Woodrow basically sold America.
Yeah, he sold us in 1913. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's when we got stuff. Actually, America was a problem the day that we added a particular, the day that Jefferson included protecting copyright and patent laws. That's when we lost our freedom, is when they decided to do that.
Yeah, because by that point in time, they became a protectionist state.
Yeah. So why I say that centrists, why I believe centrists are the problem, part of the problem, is because the centrist is going to try to negotiate between like the right and the left to come up with some kind of thing that's manageable for both sides of the spectrum. But when you give to both sides, then both sides lose. And so you don't know if the centrist is going to pick the leftist issue on this one or if they're going to pick the right issue. So they're more like, you don't know where they stand.
Okay, well,
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm really sorry, and I need to say I was a little bit distracted when you were talking, but isn't it also to me like I can say, okay, well, on this one, the right wing seems to be right, but on the other issue, I can look and like, yeah, now with this, actually, the left wing is right. So it's not where I stand as if when I back left as a left or right as a right. I don't know how to say it in English, but it's more like I stand for certain principles, and sometimes the left wing is actually right. Sometimes right wing is actually right.
Well, I think that the centrists are individualists. So I do believe that centrists are individualists. But the problem with that is that with a leftist, so okay, so God, I need to give an example to make it make sense. So a centrist, I don't know what their underlying principles are. So my underlying principles are as close to freedom as possible. I understand that 100% freedom is not possible. So the centrists to me are 50% freedom. And
that's why you're wrong.
Well, I'm telling you that's how I see it. But you guys, each one of you said that you're okay with the welfare state. And welfare is redistribution that's forced. There's a difference between
that's not true. That's not true. Welfare doesn't have to be forced. That's the point I was trying to make earlier. It doesn't have to be forced. That it is very often nowadays forced is because that's the way it turned out to be. But if we look at the original way of welfare, it was a social program, but it doesn't mean it's socialistic. It's
but
something.
It is. That's what socialism is. It's taking.
Because if that's what socialism is, then the police force, the army are socialistic.
No, there's different. Yes.
Charity by the churches, is that socialism?
So here's what. Okay, so this is why I've been spending so much time going back in time, because what the left wing did to all of us. Okay, what the left wing did to all of us, however you define it, is, and well, let's say postmodernist, because then everybody will be okay with that term. What they realized that they can change the definition of words. We learned that in 1984. That is how they ushered in tyranny. So if we don't go back to the beginning and we don't actually clearly define certain words and what they mean, then we're never, ever going to solve our problem. So with socialism, there's 3 different types of socialism. You have the Bolshevik socialism, you have the welfare state socialism, which is like all of us Western countries. And then there's the national socialism, which would be China, Cambodia.
Yeah, but
I can't Vietnam.
Even within the welfare socialism, there are different forms. And what we see in the West now is that it's more or less homogenized. They all became the same, but they didn't start that way.
But that's what I'm saying, is it starts by steps.
No. It's not even that it starts by steps. If we look at, for example, in the Netherlands, if we look at how the welfare system started in the Netherlands, it was basically there were 2 options. You could have social welfare because you can't work for whatever reason, and there's unemployment benefits. But the social welfare is paid by everyone out of taxes, but they will give you very little money, just enough to survive. the unemployment benefits are based on what you've worked. Now, they've changed that throughout the years, but I can still remember when I was younger, it was based on if you had worked for if you had worked for a year, you could have a few months of unemployment benefits. And then it would count the years you would have worked. And based on how long you would have worked, that's how long of an unemployment benefit you would get. But if, for example, I work 10 years and I get into an unemployment, I would get unemployment based on those 10 years of work. And it would be 70% of my last earned salary of the last year. Trying to do this out of the top of my head. But if I take unemployment now and I would be starting working again and I would be unemployed again in a year time, it wouldn't calculate all those 10 years. It would merely calculate that 1 year. So it would be based on those 1 year, and that would only give me like 2 months of unemployment, for example. Now they've changed that to equalize it all over, and obviously that fucked it up. The thing is that we've seen a lot of changes in our welfare system in the Netherlands, and I assume this is true for most countries, that are pushed by politics, but the politics is more to the left. But when it started from the right. Because every society, to create a stable society, you want a safe society. So you want.
See, I'm gonna have to interrupt you, Modwain. That's exactly what our slaveholders have told us from the beginning of time. That you need. No. But if you go, I'm telling you, is that it's fine that you think it's good to have social welfare programs. That's fine. I mean, I have no problem with you wanting that. I have no problem with anybody on the panel wanting those social welfare programs and a backstop. I think that's absolutely fine. I think from just looking at history, it always leads to tyranny. Look at what's happening obviously in Europe and in America. Everybody that paid into the welfare system is being screwed.
Yeah, but that's because the welfare system has gone beyond what needs.
It always does. But that's the problem is that all charities, all voluntary charities would be able to keep the amount of people that are absolutely indigent and need help, feed them, and we wouldn't have it grow out of control because it's localized, it's small, and people take care of one another. But the second that it starts getting bigger, and maybe I'll just say that, the second anything starts getting bigger, a country gets any bigger, that's the first step to tyranny as well. So I don't agree with you guys, but that's fine. It's fine that I don't agree with you.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem you're not agreeing.
Well, for me, as a moderate right or censor right, whatever you want to call me, I do believe that we should focus more on charity. Focus more on giving charity, like donating food, as opposed to a person getting handouts from the governments. Because I do think that psychologically, people could have entitlement issues where people would always want more and more and more and more. And I have heard of a situation, I think I heard it from you, if I'm not mistaken, where there is a person who've received like lots of handouts, and then they got up higher in society, and they went back to where they came from. And when they went back to where they came from, they're like, I don't deserve this. I'm so miserable. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to live in such a horrible place. And, but it's kind of like, I do believe that people should be incentivized to actually work. And I do think that there is a problem with incentivization where people don't work, but they want stuff.
Yeah, but on that, I totally agree. And once a welfare system is basically perpetuated, we have a problem. People shouldn't be in welfare for a long time. But obvious exceptions contradict that. I mean, if you have physical disabilities, then okay, I can understand that people aid you, and whether that is from a voluntary perspective or from a state program, to me that difference isn't that big. It's cheaper if you do it together. That's the only thing. But at the same time, I agree with Alicia that the way that the welfare systems in the Western world are built up at the moment are indeed, by lack of better word, problematic.
Because there's a difference. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but there is a difference between you cannot work and you choose not to work. There's a difference between, well, my leg is missing, or I am very sick and I am physically unable to work. And there's a difference between that and you are able-bodied, but you choose not to work, or you half-ass, choose to work, it's kind of a lot like, like at my place of employment, how there are people who would go to my job and they would agree to work there, but they constantly show up late, or they would be brand new and they would skip days. And it's like they are trying to get fired on purpose. It's kind of like they're there, but they really don't want to be there. And so I do think that there is a difference between being physically unable to work and choosing not to work. And people who choose not to work shouldn't get unemployment benefits. Like you should actually make a real effort to improve your life. You should actually try.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I how do I say this? I understand what you're saying, Alicia, and I understand what you're saying, Mark. But to me, that's the extreme. Now we are in the extreme. I'll grant you that, because our welfare systems in the West are pretty fucked up. But that's not where it should be. And whether it's on voluntary basis or government regulated basis isn't the main problem. The main problem is that we have politicians that pander to people who are dependent on these welfare programs, and not just poor people. I mean, there are very rich people who are dependent of these welfare systems as well. Look at Walmart. Walmart in America couldn't exist if it weren't for the welfare systems in America, because, well, they could, but they would have to pay their employees more. But because of the welfare system as the way it's set up in America, they get away with paying their workers pittance.
Well, the problem is that where you start circling what caused the problem, all of that. But without property taxes, and the ability to own property, we would have already solved the housing crisis just about everywhere. Everywhere.
I totally agree with that.
And so that would be a non-issue. But the reason why, it's going to be all conspiracy, but the fact is that the United Nations, right, the population fund, they said we have to decrease the population. And so one of the ways of doing it humanely is to have an increase in food prices. And so what they do is they go back and they skew all of the food prices so that food gets inflated. So this is not even America that did it. So food prices got inflated where people couldn't afford to feed their family, even if you had a job, that paid fine just a week before. So it's all these outside forces. So Walmart could survive. They actually were doing better when they followed a different model, when they were actually owned by the original man. The original man that opened Walmart, he would be rolling in his grave right now to see how his children have turned it out. The reason why Walmart became so powerful was because they were very protectionist and they only sold made in America products. And so they were able to pay their employees more. But then the floodgates opened when our deal with Mexico and Canada and all these other places opened up. And that's another form of socialism. So, which it is, it's hard to explain all that without being conspiratorial, but this is all by design. And every single person that voted in for welfare in the first place, we all have to take responsibility and say, we opened Pandora's box, and now it's all coming into flood because you can't.
You're complaining about globalism because you talk about, like Mexican goods and Canadian goods instead of American goods. That to me is the problem with globalism, in my opinion.
If you have free trade, right, Rena, if you think about this, if I can trade with China, then Chinese people should be able to come here, period. I mean, if we're going to have exchange of goods, then we should be able to exchange people.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. On this, I disagree.
I understand. Well, I'm saying is that if you're going by actual principles of private property and free trade, then people should be there shouldn't be any borders in the first place. So I'm actually considered closer to the center with the voluntarist situation because they don't even want borders.
Okay, I don't see the connection between borders and trade and
But because, well, this is why. So America, I'm going to pick some erroneous numbers that aren't true. Let's say everybody in America makes $10 an hour, right?
$10, honestly.
I'm just picking.
I know.
And then let's say that everybody in China makes 50 cents an hour. So all of the American corporations can exploit the workers of China, which they do. They go into other countries. They exploit China. China gets all of this money from us. So whatever money we had goes into China, just like the same thing is happening with Mexico. So a great majority of Mexican residents, they send a lot of money back to Mexico. So that's a loss of net income, so to say, from America. So then they exploit China. China starts making more money, which is good. So then the corporations from the United States, all of our prices we start having hyperinflation and our wages don't mean shit anymore. So then they move to India and then they exploit India. So if you're going to allow your corporations to do that, then why can't the people move freely? So I don't know. It's a big no.
It's what you're saying makes sense, and I do think that there's a difference between people moving freely and people moving freely. But at the same time, I also think corporations shouldn't move freely. I am not in favor of protectionism, but at the same time, I'm also not in favor of devaluating your own currency.
What I would like to see, I think that would solve this problem. I've been giving it a lot of thought, you guys. I think if we put a cap, like a maximum amount of money that anybody could make and a maximum amount of corporations or stores that you could own. I don't think that infringes on anyone's rights. You could have like a really high cap, like $5 billion in the bank, and then you have to retire. But something has to be done because these monopolies are out of control.
Monopolies, you said it.
But the problem is the monopoly. The problem is protectionism.
There is a new thing. I think it was created by Bernie Sanders. I think it's called the Stop Bezos Bill, which is supposed to deal with monopolies, where they where it's kind of like they want to charge the corporations for each and every single employee that's on welfare.
That's probably a horrible bill because that'll screw the little people over. No, what I'm saying is that instead of think about how much freer all of us in the world would be if say Walmart could only own a total of 1,000 stores. or
No,
McDonald's.
You guys
You're
are
looking in the wrong way. You're
That's
looking in
really-
the wrong way. You're looking in basically limiting movement, so to speak.
No, you're not limiting movement though. That's what I'm saying is
You
that
are.
no, because think about it. Think about all the people that have invented things, right? That have invented things and then they just sell out to a big corporation.
Yeah,
And
but
then
no,
the big
no, I'm
corporation
sorry. Alicia, let me explain
Okay.
why I think you are wrong. And I do think you are wrong. Don't make mistakes about that. The thing is this. If I invent something and I sell my invention to a big company, then for a period of time, they should be able to produce what I invented. How long is that period of time? How long are they protected that they are the only ones allowed to produce a certain thing? That's where the problem lies. Now, in the old days, we would say, okay, I produced something, I invented something for a short period of time. No one else is allowed to make copies. And that short period of time was a few years max. Now it's almost 100 years, or in some cases even longer than 100 years. This is protectionism. This part of protectionism.
Okay,
needs to
wait. So obviously we must have a language barrier there because that I've never heard that as protectionism. I never. That's just copyright and trade rules, but I didn't. I've never heard it. I assumed
and patent rights are protectionism.
Okay, but I've never heard that. So protectionism, everything that I've heard is that high tariffs on anything coming in, low tariffs on anything going out. So you're protecting the borders. I've never
both of them are protectionism. They're just on a different side. I mean, if I give a high copyright or patent right period, I'm protecting the companies producing.
Okay, and that's what I'm just pointing that out because that's probably why we're actually having miscommunication because of definition.
Yeah, but okay, let me clarify it a little bit further. At this point in time, and I made a few videos about the topic, and I'm pretty sure I must have mentioned it once or twice before. At this point in time, we see that the pharma industry is by far the biggest earner in the Western world. And they are by far the biggest earner in the Western world because they can set prices and no one can compete with them because you're not allowed to make the same product. This is not what capitalism is. Capitalism says everyone is allowed to produce. If you can produce cheaper, go ahead. But because of the protectionism, which is copyright, patent right, etc., you are no longer allowed, you are no longer able to compete. And therein lies the problem.
Yes, I do think that we protect big corporations a lot and make it harder for smaller people to compete. Instead of
Rin, that's what I was saying. That's exactly what I said. That's when America made the mistake is when we did Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, patent and copyright clause to the Constitution. I think that that's exactly where we made our mistake, and that was the first step towards tyranny. Copyright and patent protection, I think, is one of the first steps to tyranny. So we're on the same exact page, Modwain. But I've never heard it called that. That's what I'm saying is that it might just be.
It is protection. There is no. This is the funny thing because people keep calling the Western economic system. We keep calling it capitalism. We're not living in a capitalistic system because protectionism and capitalism do not go together at all. Free market and capitalism go together. But we haven't seen a free market for over 100 years. And people are still talking as if we're living in a free market. Oh, look at the iPhone. It's an emblem of capitalism. Well, buying one might be, but the bloody thing itself isn't. Lots of money has gone into Apple to be able to make that thing, and no one else is able to compete with them because you're simply not allowed to. if they can find an excuse to say, oh, no, your phone does this in almost the same way my phone does it, therefore I claim copyright. This happened actually between Samsung and iPhone not too long ago. They fought over whether they broke each other's copyright. Well, fuck that. This is, for example, if we look at AIDS medication, India doesn't give a fuck about international patent law when it comes to medication. India produces AIDS, HIV cocktails for less than 1% as the Western world does. Are they less effective? No, they're not. They're just as bloody well good stuff. But they're not even 1% of the price that the Western companies are asking for it. Now, Western companies don't feel threatened too much because India isn't that, well, it's a big country, but the pharma industry in India isn't that big, so they don't feel that they are in danger. And in the Western world, Western pharmacies are not allowed to sell the Indian versions because of copyright claims. So I don't mind that.
Protection is a double-edged sword. Yes, it can stifle, but it can also, imagine, if you were a scientist and you have you make a patent of something, and someone else steals it, you makes it cheaper. Do you think you will invent something again later on?
So make it reasonable.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely fine.
So like 5 years or in some
5,
cases
10 years.
10 years.
That's fine.
That's it. But not 100 years.
No, that's too much. And also, shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. Yeah, I was just going to say that. I had something else, but I forgot.
Yeah, but 1 second. Yeah, my mic's working. Alicia, the thing is that I think if we would have that cap to what could you earn, right, or make as a company.
I didn't say a cap on what the company could earn. I said the number of stores.
Yeah, but that because in a way it's I understood you as what you could earn, that what you said as well. That's how I understand it, because then I thought it's yet another step to socialism.
No. Personal. See, that's what. No, I'm talking about. So first off,
But I'm sorry.
No. I didn't mean that. So like, you could just a cap where you'd be forced into retirement, but you could make it high, like $5 billion, and it doesn't harm anybody. It's never been tried. It's the only system that's never been tried.
Yeah, but if then you say we're not going to have capitalism. You don't want it, because the whole idea is that I can make as much money as I'm able to make. But the problem is with making it in a, I'm going to be naive in that, in a honest way, because in the end, if I have a product that people really want, that is good, if I can have, why should I have only 10,000 stores if, for example, I could have 20 or 50,000 and give more jobs to people, hire and sell my product.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. That's having a product is not the same as owning a store.
True.
I'm talking. So what I'm saying is that before. Okay, here, let's do it like this. So the news media, there used to be, say there were 50 newspapers, right? Mm-hmm. 50. I'm just throwing out erroneous numbers here. So the thing is that there were 50 different separate news stores. Mm-hmm. Then one person came in and bought all 50 of those stores. Now that one person controls all the information. Everybody seems to understand this with Google. All of you guys all understand this monopoly with Google, but you don't realize that. Do you know Bayer? Bayer owns 24% of the entire world's seeds
I get what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
That's
To
evil.
prevent a monopoly, and you're looking for solutions to
Yes,
prevent
exactly. Because most of these monopolies, they didn't invent shit. They bought it from someone. It's like the difference between Nikola Tesla and what is the guy, the Edison, the
Benjamin
guy that gets
Franklin?
no, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, what did he do? He got 1,000 inventors. He just paid them, right? And then he got the patents for everything because he owned the corporation. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to stop monopolies because we're not owned by governments anymore. We all know that. We're owned by corporations. So we switched out kings and queens for corporations, you know?
True that.
Okay.
And this is indeed a problem. But this is also why we need to move away from protectionism. We need to return to capitalism. Because if you live in a capitalistic system, the argument, well, they can produce stuff cheaper in China, isn't an argument anymore. If they can, then by all means, buy it in China.
Yeah.
I understood you then.
No, it's fine. I didn't explain myself well at all. I sounded like a goddamn communist for a minute.
Yeah, you did. Oh, you lefty.
Yeah, I really did. But you know what would happen though? So like, if we could just be true free market, you know, we wouldn't have half of the problems that we have. We know that, especially with medicine. If we could just...
Medicine, oh yeah. No, the medicine is absolutely ridiculous.
The United States does have a free market in dentistry. It's not covered by any.
They don't in the Netherlands. It's still protected.
No, but in the United States, dentistry, the dentist thing.
So chiropractors are free too.
Yeah, but chiropractors aren't real. They're no. I'm talking about real.
No. The chiropractors in America have to go to school as long as the doctors do. They are doctors.
But that doesn't mean they're true. The social sciences or social studies also go a long time in university. They're still not the same. No.
That's really. I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree with you. A lot of chiropractors.
You are absolutely fine with that. I still love you for that. I agree to disagree with you. But what my point is that dentistry is not covered by or in the same way as doctors are with insurances and all those regulations and all that shit thing. The majority of regulations and monopolizing, in fact. While dentistry, it's free for all. Yes, it can be expensive, but I know that there are so many dentists competing with each other that they offer good quality and cheaper as they can, so they can get customers because they're not covered by insurances at all. Or if they are, there's very, very small insurance things. In Portugal, it's the same. We have everything is like in the Netherlands. It's exactly the same as in the Netherlands. So you would know what I'm talking about, Modwain. But that's the only thing. If they did that to healthcare, what they have in dentistry in the United States, the prices would drop, and the quality would go up. I have anecdotal experience on private healthcare in Portugal. I have both. My job gives me public, quite the top tier because we have two tiers. I'm on the top tier of the public health service, but it's still crap compared to the private sector. I'm paying private insurance. It's 35 euros a month, but I am treated like a god if I go to a private hospital instead of waiting months to go to the public hospitals here. So yes.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I am going to call it quits. There are plenty of things I want to say, especially when we're talking about the pharma industry and whatever.
Yeah.
But I have a very long day tomorrow, and I kind of do need to go to bed. So I'm going to call it quits a little bit sooner. Alicia basically told us that she had to step away as well. I do like to thank everyone for coming. We had a very good conversation.
Absolutely.
We could continue on this. But for now, I am sorry. I am going to call it quits. Anyone wants to have any famous last words?
I'm just going to say this was awesome. The people in this stream are just tops.
I have to agree with you. I like
and the people in the also listening in the chat. They also
yeah. That's the one thing I really like. We don't have to agree with each other.
No, exactly. That's what a centrist does.
Indeed.
I knew you would say that.
It's true though.
Hello.
Marcus,
Hey,
man,
Hello, Marcus.
same right at the end, man.
you just come in time to say bye because I was actually going to end the stream now.
Oh, already?
Yeah, it's a little, it would have been half an hour longer anyway, but I have a long day tomorrow, so I'm going to go to bed.
Oh, well.
Fucking all that, tired.
Like
Anyway.
After stream.
Yeah, you can hang out for the after stream. I won't be there though, but yeah, you can.
Can I just ask us something to really quick to Warped? Warped reflect. The doctors of the public also work in the private. So and not the nurses though. The doctors, yes, they work on both sides of the field, and they are totally different when they're in the private sector. Trust me, they are. They're just better people. The same person is better when they deal with the private than in the public. Yes. Okay. That's it.
Anyway, I am going to call it quits. Alicia, Rin, you gotta say something. You want to say something?
Yeah, I make new videos once every week. A new video comes out every single Thursday.
Alicia? No? Okay. Smirkus, thank you for coming. But yeah, thank you everyone in the chat as well. Mark, thank you for joining in on the chat. I can't remember having seen your name before, but I do appreciate you bringing in some points.
Yep, it was good.
And thank you, Alicia, for joining in the end as well. And bye. I'm going to hang up because otherwise I'll be talking for another half hour, and I really do need to go to bed. I hope to see you all next week.